share it too. You guys want to share it. Welcome, everybody. We are Team NBS, and wow. Like, how do we talk about this? A lot has happened in the last 24 hours, and this directly affects not only the players and the staff and the coaching, but the fans as well as people who work in sports. So we wanted to make sure that we, address the situation. I think we started planning it like last night when none of the seasons were canceled or suspended. So now that's obviously changed. So we'll just jump right in here. I'll go ahead and ask Raj if you want to give your take on this and what your feeling is, and check in with you and see how it's going.
Yeah, it's all kind of still sinking in because it's just been about 24 hours since we really started to see the whole domino effect of what went down. Obviously, the Jazz OKC game was set to tip off at around 8 o'clock, and if you were like on Twitter or on social media, you noticed that a lot of reporters that were at the game, people that were watching the game, were saying, "Hey, the game's not tipping off. What's going on?" And there was all this sort of speculation. Obviously, the Rudy Gobert tied to it, and the players went back into the locker room, and I think people just didn't know what to say about it. They didn't know how to process it. I think there was just it was just a lot of mixed feelings because, in one sense, it's for the safety of everybody, the players, the fans, the personnel, the staff. And in that sense, you do understand the reason for why it happened. But at the same time, I think it's all very overwhelming because at least in my lifetime, I don't think I've ever personally witnessed anything like this.
I forgot to unmute. Yeah, I think the only time that I can remember anything like this, and it's nowhere near in comparison to what's going on, but it's 9/11. I mean, I was talking to someone today on a meeting where everything was just shut down, and that was kind of like right away. But we didn't have social media like we have now. So it's kind of like trying to navigate your way through the news and like the rumors and like who's affected and stuff like that. And Ashmir, if you want to talk a little bit about, how this affects us as a team in terms of NCAA tournament, because we didn't expect this to happen.
Yeah, so I think yesterday my high hopes were that they were only going to allow credentialed media at the March Madness tournament. So a lot of us were traveling coast to coast that were going to be a part of it. I was going to be in LA for the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 next 2 weeks from today. And so yesterday I was just like hoping and praying at least they would allow the fans and close families as everything initially started out to be, which I feel like that is crazy on its own. We never got to develop from that. Like, I feel like a lot of athletes were preparing to play in a silent stadium, with no fans or just their family. And then all of a sudden it went from 0 to 100, meaning like literally nothing else. There's nothing else going on anymore. So I think for me, I was pretty devastated. And just because, I mean, this is a little brag, but Oregon, the women is doing, and the men, they're like in the top of the Pac-12. So I was just hoping to see them, win in March Madness. So I just feel like the entire situation has just been like very, I don't know, it's a whirlwind. Today's been a whirlwind for sure. So
yeah. And Jordan, if you want to comment on where you're at, I know you're out in the East Coast, and were you going to cover any games in the upcoming weeks or not?
Yeah, it was definitely going to try to if they were going to be in the area. Personally being in Pennsylvania, we had, I think, New York declared the state of emergency today. So that is starting to escalate there. And I know Philadelphia was starting to discourage gatherings of like more than 1,000 or 5,000 people. So it's getting pretty hectic over here. Kind of what Ashmir was saying about like March Madness, it definitely stinks. I think the people I feel like worse for are like the seniors on all the teams, because those guys have been playing and working their tails off since they were, 3, 4, 5 years old. So to see them come all this way, a lot of those guys aren't going pro, or females as well. They're not going pro. So this was like their last shot to play in a tournament and have a chance at a national title. And, I think that's different in some ways in pro sports, like winning a collegiate title with your teammates that you spent several years bonding with. Is something special and unique, and the fact that some of these guys aren't going to be able to do it is it's pretty sad.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that, especially the NCAA tournament here in San Diego is a big story because we were projecting to go pretty far. Taylor, do you have some thoughts about all of this that's shaken down in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. I mean, just this whole year, just kind of now getting to a point where we're processing Kobe's death and everything from that 6 weeks ago. And I was looking forward to watching UT this morning play Tech because I'm from Austin, and empty crowd, but that didn't happen. And being in Austin, talked about Raj last week. They canceled South by Southwest here. I think the last hour they just canceled the rodeo as well here in Houston. So, and just from the sports aspect, it's just really sad to see. It's like you said, Jordan, the seniors not be able to play through the tournament. And I've been following Andrew Jones, who had leukemia with the UT Longhorns too, and just seeing all these stories from all around the world and the country in this past couple of days here. It's just really sad. And just as far as with Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell too, now being diagnosed with the virus, hopefully they're being quarantined and they can heal from this quickly. And hopefully they're just finding kits for everybody and to not let this spread any further. But it's just a whirlwind too. And I'm planning to do a couple concerts here to go see Rage Against the Machine in a few weeks. Right now it's still on in El Paso and Las Cruces, but it's just a worldwide effect. Just so many things are being canceled, and just, it's for the best. We understand. It's just very unfortunate and disheartening that it's gotten this far, but everybody's health is the biggest priority. So I'm glad that all the leagues and commissioners and so forth are doing what they got to do to make sure that's the top priority.
Yeah, I think, obviously it's selfish to be like, oh, I'm going to miss these games and miss these events. But then you think about now, like us who kind of work in the industry and cover these games, like this is our livelihood. Maybe this is for fun or this is for your future career. Like Jordan, I think you talked about that, like seniors not being able to play out the final games of their season, but now it's like, so all of our careers are kind of on hold, and like, what's that mean for like the summer when we had basketball to cover for the next couple of months, and it's really, really unfortunate. So Ashmir, I do want to talk to you about a little bit about like what you've heard in terms of people you have connections with in the industry as like sports media professionals. Have you heard anything directly from people?
Yeah, so I had a friend that went to the combine, and I was asking him, how he thinks even the draft is going to be, because it was very limited to the number of people that were allowed there, and the NFL was kind of trying to maintain control of who they were letting, on site or who they were letting within the facility, just because. And I feel like that was very early on when we were all just kind of like, yeah, it's a maybe. And, now that the numbers are growing, everybody's like being very cautious of who they're allowing within any distance of people. So that was kind of the only person I had heard from, just that they're being, they're just upping their safety protocols and making sure if you have been somewhere where you could have been exposed, then you know what, you can't attend this, or we'll give you the media that we're going to allow for you guys to use for your websites or anything like that. They're just they're just being very, they're being safe, right? That's all you can ask for at this point. I also wanted to comment that it's kind of disappointing, even though it is like our livelihoods and our jobs. I feel like sports is also like an outlet. So there's so much negativity going on with it. And then just to watch a game and just kind of forget, like, oh God, we heard Italy's on quarantine for the entire month. Like, we can watch the Warriors lose for the 15th time in a row, like just to pick your spirits up, even though it sucks. But I'm just, I feel like that's another thing that we all have to remember is like, now we kind of have a month of where we need to like, we're all quarantined. We're all just keeping I am personally, my company is closed, so I have to stay home till the end of March. So it's kind of like, what do you do?
Yeah, I think I'm not generally an anxious person, but just being in this like environment, it challenges those thoughts of like me being positive all the time and like, enjoying sports. And then now it's like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, outside of that. So, Taylor, so you're in Texas, right? I like forget where our whole team is because we're kind of all over the place sometimes. What are you gonna do when you're like not watching sports? Is there shows you're gonna catch up on?
Yeah, I'm a big Better Call Saul fan. Not sure if y'all are. I've been watching that this 5th season here. I was talking to Raj about that last week on our podcast. But and I do a lot of dog sitting and pet sitting, and I've had 3 or 4 just canceled because people can't fly out. Their trips are canceled. So it's just being in the gig economy. I'm affected by that as well. So it's just, you got to make adjustments and so forth. But, I was looking forward to Lakers Rockets tonight. A possible playoff matchup there, but obviously that's trivial and nowhere near as important as what is going on right now. So, just try to stay active and try to do the best you can to make, be with your family. Just try to limit your social distancing. I guess the term has been going around right now as well. And just use common sense and proper judgment. And, that's kind of what it is right now. It's just, we're all kind of in a state of shock and not really sure what to do. So we're still processing it. And it's still going to be like that for a long time. You alluded to like 9/11. I think we're all younger. We were around the Magic Johnson HIV scenario way back when, but those are the kind of things off the top of my head that I can think of that come anywhere close to this. But this is definitely unprecedented to say the least, and it's just changing it as the hour goes by. More developments to go. I think Adam Silver or the owners were saying they possibly wanted a 30-day reevaluation period, which would be kind of close to playoff time. And I believe the Hawks CEO was talking about possibly doing the scheduling later in the year. I think that was a story earlier this week or last week. So they may be forced to be able to implement that, because of this pandemic. So, but to answer your question, just kind of trying to keep spirits up, kind of try to keep life going as best you can. But it's just a fluid situation, and you just try to do the best you can to, do proper hygiene and to just, limit your surroundings to other people until they get kind of a hold on this and calms down.
Yeah. So does anyone know all of the sports closed and like which ones are suspended or canceled indefinitely? I know I've been trying to keep up, but I haven't been keeping a list.
I think they're all on
all of them
right now. MLB starting 2 weeks late. NHL and NBA and MLS as well.
NFL is even putting a hold on travel. I know the Skins were talking about how their coaches and players are not allowed to travel and have limited engagement outside the team. So that's it's affecting sports that are not just going on now. We're obviously talking about like NBA and March Madness and whatnot because that's sort of top of mind. But at the same time, it's impacting, as Taylor and many of you have mentioned, other industries as well, other sports as well, sports that are not going on right now. It's far more broad reaching than I think any of us even anticipated. Like we just said at the top of this broadcast 24 hours ago, I don't think we could have even expected it to all the dominoes to fall so quickly and so drastically.
Right. Well, I have a friend in Canada that said that they just banned travel to the U.S. like just now, like 10 minutes.
Wow.
And if they come back, if they travel to the U.S. and come back, they have to self-isolate for 2 weeks. So that's the risk they're taking. And
is it worth it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, but I was originally making fun of people that were stockpiling toilet paper, and then I checked my cabinet before I came on, and I have only 6 rolls left. So I think I need to go to the store.
Good luck, bro.
Start rationing. Yeah, I mean, it's just.
My mom said an old man was fighting someone in a parking lot.
What? Really? Oh my God.
Be careful out there.
I think the crazy part too, like what makes this so, I guess, extreme and tough to process is like this is the one time a year where everything pretty much gets going. Like even though the NFL isn't going, like you have the drafts and the draft combine coming up soon. You have March Madness. The NBA and the NHL are gearing up for the playoffs a couple weeks away. And you have spring training and baseball. So like this is the one time of year where like I feel like every year I tweet like this is the best sports time of the year. This is so exciting to have all these things going on, and to not only have one of them but all of them just simultaneously cut off. I think is kind of where the shock effect is. Like we have nothing to turn to. Like there was nothing like that. There's I think my buddy texted me today because he likes to gamble, and he was like, I think there's Premier League darts at 3:30. Like,
There's always something, I guess.
If that's all we got, then like we're really in trouble. And like I think someone commented earlier, like even like the esports, like the 2K League season was postponed because they still have to have people in a room to play that. Like they literally anything related to sports is canceled, which is just insane. Because I mean, I think all of us can agree. We all come home and we watch something sports related, whether it's whatever sport you most like, you watch a game or highlights or something every night. And now there's nothing, and like ESPN isn't even going to put anything on. They tweeted out earlier about their programming. It's going to be rerun after rerun of like Get Up, First Take. Like I don't know what their plan is moving forward, or if that's just a stopgap, but like there's going to be nothing new even on those stations as well that we kind of take for granted. There's always putting out new content, so it's just a wild time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm checking Twitter just to see if anyone's here. Hi, everyone watching. So I guess, Raj, I need your help here because I'm kind of figuring out now what's next. Like, how do we, as a brand or like a company or anything, if you want to talk about sports and write about sports, like what do you use this time to do?
I think there's a lot of evaluation that you can kind of do of, the lead up to this situation, because there was a lot of discussion before, at least in the past like month or so. I think people were kind of gearing up for something like this to happen. So I think as a sports media brand like Nuts and Bolts, I think what we can do is maybe talk about how did we approach this entire situation, how broad it was leading up to this point. And, God forbid it doesn't happen again. Who knows what will happen in the future, and whether or not it's going to be an annual thing like people are talking about. But, how do we gear up to sort of approach what if this thing does become a big thing in the future and we do see it continually pop up across different leagues? How can we better prepare not just our readers and our listeners, but also players as well? Like, because players do tune in to media companies. They are aware, whether or not they like to admit it, they are aware of the world, what's going on around them. So how can ESPN, how can Bleacher Report, how can all these different organizations better approach the situation to ensure that everybody is as best prepared for not just how to be precautious about it, but also how to proceed after something like this does happen? I think that's sort of the first step. And then, as we've sort of alluded to here, this is, it is a sort of suspension. I think there's a lot of miscommunication when the news first started to break about whether or not it was a cancellation or a suspension. Yeah. People are like, the NBA is canceled, and it's not. It is a temporary suspension. I believe Taylor is the one that mentioned Mark Cuban on Get Up, and he talked about how he sees, and he's an owner. He's on these board of governor calls with Adam Silver, one that just happened about 5 hours ago. He's got the insight, and he's the one who's telling us that we can expect maybe a 30 to 60 day sort of period. And I think that's what a lot of the owners are asking Adam Silver to reevaluate in 30 days, where everything stands. Go ahead.
This was a tweet like 5 minutes ago. It said most likely be at least 30 days, but it's too soon to know the protocols if resuming play with or without fans, whenever that time comes.
Yeah, and I assume that once the time does come, it's still going to be probably, at least up first, we're going to see games without fans, as we were supposed to probably see this this coming week. I mean, Golden State had already announced that they were going to be playing their game today without fans in the arena. So we were already kind of gearing up for that. And I'm sure once the players are back on the court after being quarantined for at least 2 weeks, if not longer, I believe is what the league is sort of deeming standard protocol. We'll still see slow rollout to first probably media being allowed back in the arena, and then fans after that. So it's going to be a slow progression, but I think similar to what a lot of the players are being told, we still need to be ready. At the end of the day, we still need to be ready to do our jobs and do what we do best. And that's what the players are being told. And I think that in what we do, we need to be prepared in the same way.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way to look at it. I mean, there's ways you can get the message across to people, stuff like this, doing podcasts and stuff like that. But it's still, if our access is limited, then it's not going to be it's not going to be as easy, but I imagine that we'll be the first ones to let back in once they do let people back in. Hold on, I'm trying to look at the Taylor, Jordan, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, Raj making good points there about kind of what we're going to see on especially the basketball side. There's been a lot of talk with Silver and those guys. I think the NHL, and then we'll be following probably with similar states if they haven't already in the coming days. I know Shams was tweeting that earlier. I was just looking it up. Like they right now through I think the weekend, they don't want anybody leaving like the area where they live and play in. They don't. So the players remain at home as long as possible. No group workouts or practices. And if they are going to see a team physician or trainer, basically they can see them like once a day. They don't want like a lot of repeated contacts. Even within their own organization, they're taking things pretty strict. As far as like content and stuff, I mean, like you said, it's a good point. I mean, that's what we do. It's what we want to talk and write about is sports. And if we have nothing to write about, where do we go? I think, just try to, I guess, put the seasons into perspective as they are right now, whether it's looking at possible playoff matchups and all the sports that could resume, or for basketball, all NBA teams or something like that, MVP races. There's a lot of topics where you can kind of have that discussion, and then eventually it's probably going to fizzle out. I know like Bleacher Report always does. They'll rank like the best whatever of the decade or last 20 years or something like that. There's always content that you can create. It's just not going to be after a while live up-to-date stuff, but we just kind of got to do the best we can and keep churning out as many ideas as possible.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna like do some like classic watching like of soccer matches because I'm like the soccer girl. I don't know if you guys knew that, but yeah, I'm the soccer person, so I'm gonna watch some old matches and like tweet about them. So I'm like, how else do you talk about? I mean, there's Champions League, Europa League, Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, like all of these are going on right now, and it's like year-round soccer, and it's all stopped right now. So it's like, what do you do?
Yeah, Marissa, I would like to get your sort of perspective on that entire situation because you being the soccer person, like, and it being a worldwide sport, especially big in places like Italy that are basically entirely shut down. What are you kind of seeing in that regard, and how is that entire sport being like handled? Because I know some games are being played without fans, games are being played with fans, which is kind of shocking to me. And then some games have been canceled outright. So I wanted to kind of get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think today is probably the last day that fans were gonna play or watch, just because of everything that's like shaken out, and now with the Arsenal manager testing positive for coronavirus, and Arsenal's my team. And I was literally just in the locker room 2.5 weeks ago. Well, Friday will be 3 weeks. And I'm like, could I have coronavirus?
Wow.
Potentially. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any symptoms, but you never know. And I think just the game itself, like, I think with any sport, feeds off the fans. I mean, the chants, the noise, the reactions, and it's obviously a different sport than all the other major ones in the U.S. I think it's devastating. There's people that travel from, like, I've seen tweets from like people that are coming from like South Africa, from South America to go to the UK, to go to Europe, to go to these matches, and they've planned these trips for months and months and months in advance, and they're canceled or they're like not going to be allowed in the stadium. And then what do? You have to make the most of the situation, but it's definitely a test of your positivity, your positive outlook, because as long as you're healthy, then you're okay. But I think it's gotta stop, just like all the other major US sports, at least the world football. And then, MLS, USL, I believe US Open Cup, which is like the oldest tournament in the US, is going to be stopped too. And I guess it stops for 2 weeks, and then we make a decision, or 30 days. I think MLS is stopping for 30 days as well as USL. So it's going to suck. I mean, I think what Ashmir said before about where we all escape to watch, or Jordan said that, we all escape to watch these sports and unite kind of under our fandom. And now it's like, okay, what do we do now? Let's fight about politics, or how we're going to handle these cases and how our county is shutting things down, or how, you know, like it's like, oh, now our focus is completely away from sports. At least I hope it is. So.
That's a good point too with like the soccer. Like, I mean, I'm more of an NBA basketball person, but like it pales in comparison with like soccer about how global of a sport it is. And, you know, honestly, like for as loud as NBA games get, like you watch a soccer game and all they do is chant and go through their cheers. Like, you know, like it's a drill. Like you have to do all your cheers each game. And it's really cool to see live. So like, I can't imagine those guys trying to play without that. It's got to be such a crazy experience. And definitely, as you said, with fans traveling all over the world to support their teams, that's, you know, you feel for them. I mean, my buddy texted me today and he was like, what do you think they're going to do with the Sixers tickets? Cause I had 2 games lined up this week and I was like, they'll figure it out. Like it's not, we're right here. Like it won't be a big deal. They'll refund you the tickets. But like with those kind of things where you're making a trip to go travel across country, continent, you know, wherever, that's a more serious situation. You really have to feel for those people.
Well, I have 2 friends that were going to the Euros tournament, which is this summer, and it's in Rome, Italy. So it's like they're pretty much not going to do that, I imagine. And they've booked their flights, and they've probably booked their accommodations. And what do? And they're going to Italy. So when does Italy come back from?
Yeah, they're at the hotbed of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to book that stuff in advance. Like it's not something you want to try and do last second.
I'm gonna go to Italy tomorrow. Well, you can't now; it's so cheap. But
right, I did book a flight yesterday, though. I did to New Mexico, but that's besides the point. So,
well, speaking of all this, like, you know, obviously being a sports, we cover sports, and sort of the biggest platform in sports is the Olympics, and there's been a lot of talk of the Olympics being canceled for quite a bit of time now, and it just seems like that's becoming more and more likely. It's going to be in Tokyo this year, you know, July. Who knows? You know, people, again, we're not like medical experts or anything, so we don't really know what's going on with this thing. People have talked about is it going to sort of subside in the summer? Is that what we're going to see? But all the signs just seem to be pointing towards now the Olympics being sort of the next big domino in the sports world, at least, to fall, because it feels like that's really all that's left, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the Olympics.
read my mind.
That's kind of the worst too.
Yeah, I think with all the Olympic trials and all the preparation, like you almost have to make that decision like right now. Like you can't wait for 30 days to say if it's canceled or pushed back or. Ooh.
Plus, like some of the athletes, like you said, like with all the trials and like you're preparing for like years and years and years for your one shot at this. Like you may only get one shot at the Olympics, or it may be your last shot depending on your age and like how many years you've been competing. Like this may be your last kind of go ahead and get it type of situation. So to have that taken away, like it's terrible. But like you said, they definitely have to make it like sooner rather than later. They can't wait till, June or something.
Yeah. I think, when is that? Is it August, I think, is the Olympics? I don't remember.
I think it goes over July and August.
It starts in July, yeah, and then it'll carry into August. Yeah.
Wow.
Just looks like July 24th through August 9th.
Crazy.
Yeah, I was going to plan to do like a Japan trip this year, renew my passport, and do all that, and maybe catch the tail end of it, and see some of the basketball there. But that's not happening now. So
yeah.
So it goes.
So, okay, with all of this cancellation, let's kind of pick it up. I want to like get some happiness around here. We're all
spirits a little bit, yeah.
So how do you feel you can help people that are in the gig economy or like doing sports for like a living, or like what do you actually have you thought about that in terms of how you can help this, or this sad part of it, like?
Oh, honestly, no. Only because I don't know myself what to do. So I feel like the only thing you can do at this point is just like reevaluate, I think somebody said. So just go back and look on things that you want to improve for yourself, or, content you want to create moving forward or something like that. I feel like it's hard to be creative when there's literally a big red flag in front of your face, right? Like I feel like I had so many things projected for March Madness. I know I'm getting sad again. I'm sorry, but I was really upset yesterday. But like I was going to do a vlog, and I was going to like take everybody through LA and just be like one of those, like very interactive people for like being on the floor and everything. So I just feel like now I had so many things that I wanted to do for that. It's just like I'm gonna have to go back to. It also depends on when everything jumps back up again, right? Like when are we gonna start? Is 30 days gonna be enough? Like
Yeah.
I feel like there's just so many questions, and I'm working at the company that's trying to invent the vaccine. So it's like if I don't have the answers, I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, like, this is an opportunity to reevaluate, also like work on projects that like I've been wanting to work on for a while. Like I have like 4 podcasts almost. And, and it's always about creating, not having enough time, being able to watch the trash TV that I watch. Ashmere, I'm with you on The Bachelor. And, it's just kind of like, okay, now I can actually work on this stuff and document it and just be like, okay, this is my life right now. Like I do have other clients, I do have other things going on, but like it is all a very fluid situation because those people also rely on conferences and events that gather. Like I've had a client had 4 conferences cancel in the last week. And so that's like huge for them, so it's like you have to be innovative. Are we working on those projects that we've always put off? And now we can focus on them and still be active in a social sense, in a media sense, but like not actually talking about the game, I think.
Can I ask everybody, was everybody sort of impressed with the way that Silver, and I'm speaking like specifically to the NBA because that's sort of my wheelhouse. That's what I know best. So if anybody wants to contribute to like other sports, feel free. But that's kind of where I'm keeping my knowledge. The way that Silver sort of reacted to this entire situation last night and how things sort of shaped out, and then how other sports sort of responded to that first action by the NBA, obviously NCAA, and then the other sports that we talked about previously. Were you guys impressed by the response time, or was it, do you think, too late because it was after a fact that a case popped up in the league?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think it was probably better to be safe than sorry. And once you heard that first, with Gobert being the first one, but at the same time, like it would have been weird also if they would have done it Tuesday or Wednesday without anything confirmed. It kind of would have been like canceling school for a threat of snow without actually getting snow. It's kind of like the analogy I would think. Not that you guys on the West Coast get that, but here they do that sometimes. But once they did get that confirmed with Gobert, I think they did a really good job of just saying, okay, you know what, hey, we're postponing this game, and then quickly later it was like, okay, we're done with the season after tonight's games. And then I believe it was the Kings and the Pelicans were the last game of the night that they also postponed as well. So they didn't even get to finish out the night. But I think once you have that first confirmed, with the chain effect of like Utah playing XYZ teams in the last couple of days, and then basically everybody's been around everybody in the last week in the NBA, and every sport too. I'm sure with hockey and March Madness, you're playing all these guys who play everybody else. So I think that's such a high risk of it being infected with everybody else that you had to shut it down right away. And there's nothing you can do. You have, like Silver said, the 30 days. They're going to do right around that and use that time to reevaluate what their game plan might be coming out of it. But it's better to shut it down now than to start, seeing case after case after case, and then you're putting yourself in kind of a deeper hole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess to kind of keep it on the positive end of that, also to what Marissa was saying, like the teams that are being quarantined and soft quarantine are being tested right now because they had recent interaction with the Jazz. I mean, other than Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, it doesn't seem like there's really been any major cases of it. I think 58 players were tested players, personnel from the Jazz organization were tested, and Donovan Mitchell was the only one that came back positive from that group. So I think that in itself is a positive. Obviously, OKC was allowed to leave the arena last night, which apparently the Jazz team was not. So that in itself is a positive. And players like from the Cavs, the Wizards, the Raptors, the Pistons, those are a few of the recent teams that Utah has played. None of those players have tested positive to this point, and they're all being self-quarantined. So I think it was early enough to catch it at an early stage. And that's not to say that other people in the league don't have it. Other media, for example, might have it as well. But I think at the end of the day, it was early enough. At least from my perspective. I don't know if anybody disagrees with me or not.
No, I feel like it was inevitable for somebody to get it in order for snowball effect to occur, because just to cancel out on a whim when there was nobody that had, been exposed, and nobody truly knows when they're exposed anyways, I feel like that would have just made other sports upset and other commissioners upset. So I feel like somebody had to be the bait to lead to where we are today, and for it to happen within literally 24 hours, I feel like silver looks good on this point,
Yeah. Right. I don't know. It's
you
tough.
disagree?
No. I haven't.
No. I was like, we can hear it.
No. I'm trying to process my thoughts because I just saw the tweet about all the leagues that are canceled or suspended. MLB suspended, NBA suspended, MLS suspended, NHL suspended, March Madness canceled, XFL canceled, NLL paused. It's like freaking everyone. USL suspended.
Well, there's another question. Like, do you think that canceling March Madness was the right decision for the NCAA, or could they have postponed like other leagues are?
Yeah,
I thought they were going to postpone it.
Yeah, I think they totally should have postponed it, just because, like we were talking about, how the seniors,
their future,
last opportunity to showcase their talent and get to get farther in the tournament and potentially open up more doors for their professional careers, and it's just taken away from them. And I don't know what the reasoning behind that was, like just to not delay it. Like I'd give anything to be a fly on the wall during those meetings, because what are they talking about? Are they talking about potential lawsuits that they might get from students that might get sick, or are they talking about we just don't want to delay it for a month?
Yeah. I think there's just so many unknowns and variables right now that they, like you said, Marissa, they don't want to risk the students or anybody's health in the arenas playing these games. It's obviously an emotional thing to take this away from, especially like the seniors, like we've all alluded to. And, it's that one shining moment. Nobody's going to get that this year. And I think Mark Few, the coach of Gonzaga, was on SportsCenter, and Reese Davis interrupted him mid-interview saying that they had just canceled the tournament for both men's and women's. And he was on board to postponing it, give it some time, the interim period, like you said, of 30 days to reevaluate and go from there. But it seems like it's just too high of a concern from that perspective to risk anybody that's involved there. It's understandable, but yeah, it's from the emotional standpoint, and to take that moment from all the players. It's not that anybody's doing that. It's just it's a pandemic right now. It's everyone's been affected by it. So yeah, I personally would like to see it postponed, but as of now, that's not going to happen, which is definitely a shame.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they didn't just at least buy themselves some time. Like, I don't think there's any harm in them being like, hey, we're going to postpone this at least for, a week or two beyond the initial start date of the tournament. And just, at least they could have huddled and kind of brainstormed some ideas, or just bought themselves some time, and then announced that they were going to, cancel it permanently. But I think we've all seen over the years that Mark Emmert and NCAA they're like not predictable. Like, they just will do kind of whatever they want to do, whatever they think is their best interest. And by there, I mean like the people at the NCAA, not really necessarily the players or the coaches. But it just stinks too, because like you have the seniors, and you also have these teams that, like, I was scrolling through the rankings earlier, like you have Dayton's 3, San Diego State's 6, Creighton's 7, and some other teams are also in the top 25 that you don't normally see, especially those teams I mentioned being that high. Like, they may not get there again for a while. So those teams you also feel bad for, because like they are, their schools had to be ecstatic that they were doing so well this year and they were building a good program, and now that's kind of all for nothing. And Ashmere, you're saying with like the Oregon women, I know like their motto was, basically out there, because I think they lost in the title game last year, the semifinals title game. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like they had their motto this year was like unfinished business, and their coach tweeted out earlier today, like, sadly their business is still unfinished. Like, they were on track to go back to the Final Four, and now it's kind of just derailed. And I would have liked to see, them specifically go back, because they have their star player there who spoke at Kobe's memorial, who was like real close with him. And I think she would have been, she's been real special her entire career, but I think she would have been real special come tournament time too. So just kind of stinks. Quick side note, I was just scrolling Twitter. I guess it's sort of sad, but just so interesting that this is the first major person besides Tom Hanks. Charles Barkley is quarantining himself. He said that
personally doing it.
Yeah, he said he's fallen. He feels sick and he's self-quarantined. He's taken a test, but he hasn't gotten it back yet. So he's just kind of precautionary. So it could be, you're going to get a lot of these where like people have a regular head cold or something, or allergies, and they have to take the test. So, but for now he's quarantining himself. So we'll see what happens. That just popped up.
And yeah, I think it's important to like not freak out when you might feel a cold, because I've heard that they're not the same symptoms. Like having a runny nose is not coronavirus. You could just have a cold. So always seek like professional opinion when it comes to that, because we don't need more panic that we have right now. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, to the whole NCAA thing, like being from San Diego State was like
dogging.
They were
undefeated.
Yeah, they were. We have had a lot of sports sadness in the last 3 years, and this was like a chance. And I'm not an SDSU fan, but I was definitely okay with them proceeding in the tournament and doing really well. And I thought it would have been really good for our city. And I know fans that are like, canceled their flights to Sacramento. Like they were totally all in on like getting farther in the tournament, and it's just taken away from them. And that's like a personal thing. Like I get it. Like it's travel, it's fun, but like I can only imagine how devastating it is for everyone involved, because it's just gone. Like there's no, okay, 30-2, cool, it's over. Like no celebration, no like final game. Like I can only imagine what the school will do like after, like if they're, there's people joking they're going to put up a banner like, for 30-2 season. But I
was just going to ask, like they didn't finish their conference tournament. They
lost.
Like, they can't even. They were out.
Yeah, they lost in the final, I think.
Okay, gotcha. But yeah, like you said, what do you do? Do you put up like a banner that says 30-2?
I thought it was weird too. I think they saw like Florida State. They gave them a trophy for the men's team walking off the thing. I was just like, I don't know how you can really accept that, or it was just odd, the visual aesthetic to see that walking off the court in the locker room with the trophy. It's just doesn't feel right. It's not. Not the process.
I did see that. That's strange, and like I'm sure those guys would tell you like they would rather earn it and beat everybody. Like they're not
right.
I mean, they'll take it obviously. Like it'll be a cool thing for them because they had a great year. But I'm sure just like any athlete would tell you, like they'd rather have it earned and not given. But the one thing that has been positive that I guess we can highlight on too is like how proactive everybody was, the leagues, with getting ahead of this, so we don't have a lot of cases, but also how a lot of athletes and like organizations have been good about like refunding tickets. Like somebody commented, like the XFL, like they're refunding all their season ticket holders. I think Kevin Love earlier today donated $100,000 to like a fund for all the arena employees that work at Quicken Loans Arena, because like you think about like all those people that are out of jobs because they work on game days. So, and I think Mark Cuban was very quick yesterday to say that he would start a program as well. And I think a lot of the owners and players should follow suit. I mean, really think about how much money those guys are making in basketball and hockey and baseball. And all those sports, they should, if you're making millions and millions of dollars, like you should be able to, everyone should be chipping in about these people, because they have, just like us, they have families that they have to feed, and this is the job that they're in, and now they're out of it, and it's not their fault. So It's good to see that there's been a lot of positive proactiveness with that on the part of the athletes and owners, and I hope that continues.
Yeah, there'll be more of that. It's only been less than 24 hours since everything's been shut down essentially. So
right. Yeah, hopefully they're putting it all like into place. But it was nice to see like Kevin Love like got the ball rolling for like the players, and Mark Cuban was right away, as he's always pretty vocal anyway. But it was good to see him right away be like, "Yep, we'll get a fund going. Like we'll get people taken care of, no problem."
Yeah, speaking to Mark Cuban, I do definitely want to give him some credit, because I think he was being interviewed on the live broadcast when he spoke up. Like that was one of the first things that he mentioned when he was being interviewed on the sidelines during the game. Like, there was that reaction shot of him seeing the news on his phone while he was watching the Mavs Nuggets game last night. And then he went straight over to the bench, talked to the players, talked to the coaches during one of the timeouts. And then I think they got him on the sideline not too long after that, I think within the same quarter actually. And he was already talking about that during that conversation. So I definitely do want to give him some props. Yeah, you mentioned Kevin Love. Through his Kevin Love fund that he has set up, he is also donating, like you mentioned, $100,000 to arena staff. And I believe the Atlanta Hawks owner was also talking in the same line as Cuban. I saw that report before we got on to this recording here, so I just want to throw that out as well.
Yeah, I think we'll probably have to have round 2 of this because everything that's going to come out, I'm sure, we'll figure out what that happens. But
we could do a predictions.
Yeah.
Like,
what do you predict?
Predictions.
Like, what do you predict?
I don't know. I haven't been on the podcast in a while, so I haven't really shot my shit in a minute.
I think
I guess once things resume, I think I saw something, not to add more Debbie Downer, but I think with the Chinese leagues that they were just now like uplifting the ban, and they were at roughly like a 10-week pause period. So not to say it's going to be the same for the leagues here in the U.S., but yeah, I think at least that 30-day window is going to be the bare minimum, like y'all alluded to. Just maybe do a tier system to do games with limited media, no fans, and then kind of slowly trickle back to normalcy. But yeah, it's really tough to say right now and speculate. It's just we're kind of in a, like I said, we're all in a state of shock and just trying to gather our thoughts. So.
I think the next one we'll have to talk about is NFL because they haven't made their what's happening.
Right.
The draft I imagine won't happen. It'll be virtual. Like there won't be fans like that normally is.
It's in Vegas on a boat. You don't think they're gonna do that?
Wait, how do they have it on a boat in Vegas?
That's what they approved this year.
There's no water in Vegas.
I didn't know there was a big body of water.
No, I think it's on that Mandalay.
Yeah, they were gonna and then when you got picked, I think they were gonna have them come out on but it was honestly gonna be.
It was gonna look
like. It was gonna be like ridiculous. It was probably. I don't know if it was gonna be good, like a good ridiculous, or a.
It was gonna be hilarious, but if you were there, it's gonna be dope. Yeah.
I mean, when do they normally do it? End of April? I guess they could.
Yeah, like the 23rd.
Yeah.
April. I
guess they could still do it. I don't know.
I think they said they weren't postponing their start of league year next Wednesday, I believe it is. So I don't know if free agency is affected by that now because obviously there's so much talk with Tom Brady and all the big guys where they're going to go. So
and Phillip Rivers. Let's see where he's going.
It was crazy to see some people some of the players are traveling too. Like I think Jordan Reed, the Redskins tight end, was going to Seattle today to visit with the Seahawks, and I was like, that's one of the
top
worst areas in the country. Why are you have your interview over Skype or something? Don't travel all the way out there just to possibly put yourself at risk. But for agency that'll be nuts. With all these big names.
All right. All right, we're gonna have to make sure we do a round 2 of this next week maybe. Final thoughts, Taylor. Anything you want to say?
Well, first and foremost, thanks y'all for hosting us and having a discussion platform just to vent and to kind of process our thoughts. Is definitely therapeutic in a bizarre way, but we'll make do as we go. Hopefully, have some more positive updates a week from now. It's just everybody just stay safe, do proper judgment, don't travel if you don't need to, and kind of just. Like I said, that's a time of reflection. Try to help and donate where you can. Maybe not in-person volunteer stuff, but just find ways to help give back and to help other people around you. I think that's what brings the world and people in your community together when things like this happen. It's out of everybody's control. So,
where can people connect with you on Twitter or wherever? Where can people connect with you?
Oh, yeah, like I said, mostly in a podcast with Raj, Jeff, and I. I guess to that point, I have my custom clothing line, Summers Inc. It's at Summers_Inc. with a K on Instagram. I do all designs towards different charities. So I'll probably do something towards coronavirus-esque or something to try to promote that, awareness towards that. There you go. Thank you for that. That's coming up on a 2-year mark there. So it's a cool way for me to express myself creatively and also help give back to other people as well. So definitely check me out there. Try to do weekly releases to try to help people in many different causes.
All right, Jordan, we see your name on, and you want to do final thoughts?
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter there at _Marion33. I think one thing I was thinking about during this podcast that we talked about, what should we do during this time. I think for everybody at Team NBS and like everybody else that's like in our kind of line of work and passion, I think one thing that I'm trying to do is like work on a new skill. Like we have this time, we don't have any sports to react to right off the bat, and we'll just kind of wait for the breaking news. So like whether it's, if you wanted to learn Photoshop or you wanted to do video editing or just practice writing more, I think this is like a really good time because like we don't have that 9-10 o'clock for me like Lakers game that's going to distract me late at night. Like I want to take that opportunity, so I would encourage everybody to do that. And like Taylor said, like give back if you can in any way, and I'll just try to push out as much random content, whether it's evaluating stuff or just debating or rankings, whatever it is. We'll try to push out as much content as possible, but it'll be out there on Twitter for you guys.
Cool, thank you. Raj?
Yeah, I guess the easiest thing to say is just be safe out there. Be as safe and as precautious as you can be, and at the same time try to be rational, try to be reasonable. Don't go crazy. Just be smart, be informed, and stay safe. And yeah, but my handle just popped up there. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RajSaw236. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Ashmere.
I don't know. I'm all over the gram, so you guys will see me on Nuts and Bolts no matter what. But I'm gonna try to be more like Taylor. I really like the message that you sent, and that you have like a clothing line that donates. Like I'm gonna change myself that I have this time. Literally, I feel like life is so go, and like living two different lives for me. Like working full time and trying to do what I'm doing. Like now I can just do one part and then focus on a different part. So I'm going to copy Taylor and try to be a better person while literally everyone needs better people right now.
Absolutely.
So, she's gonna give your clothing line some competition.
Yeah.
So rivalry, inner NBS rivalry.
We're gonna make sure brand. That's the word.
It's all about collaborating, helping others. So
yes. And finally, my final thoughts is I think I'm generally not a nervous person, so I'm trying to be as positive as I can for people who potentially suffer from anxiety or depression, because this is a lot to deal with, I think, if they're not centered. So keeping that in mind and just trying not to increase the panic by like making sure I'm spreading positivity as well as good messages throughout social media and using social media for good. And if you need to connect with me, you can use that at #Marissa everywhere. And obviously through Nuts and Bolts Sports, I'm always on there. So
it's awesome.
Cool.
Thank you guys. If one last final plug, if you have not subscribed to Team NBS or Nuts and Bolts Sports YouTube, you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button on YouTube down below. So thank you for watching, everyone who catches the live or the replay. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.